I never thought I'd live to see the day my own family would try to take my life. You raise your children with love, you sacrifice everything, and you believe family is forever. But sometimes, family becomes your worst nightmare. My daughter-in-law came into my life like an angel. She called me Mama, hugged me, and told everyone how much she loved me. My son believed she was perfect. I wanted to believe it too. I thought, finally, my boy found happiness. But behind closed doors, things were different. She didn't like me giving advice. She didn't like me cooking for my son. She didn't like me being around. Slowly, she made me feel like I was a guest in my own home. And my son, he stopped listening to me. Everything I said, she twisted. Everything I did, she complained about. Then came the night that changed everything. I walked into the kitchen late at night just to get a glass of water. She was standing there with a knife. At first, I thought nothing of it. People use knives in kitchens every day, but the way she looked at me, it wasn't normal. It wasn't love. It wasn't respect. It was cold. Before I could even speak, she moved toward me. Fast, no warning, no words, just anger in her eyes. The knife came at me, and in that moment, I truly believed I was about to die. I felt the blade hit me. I screamed. I prayed. I thought about my life, my son, my memories. I thought, is this how it ends? By God's mercy, it wasn't a fatal wound. Neighbors heard me screaming and came running. They called for help. They saved my life. But what happened after that hurt even more. My son came home. I thought he would hold me, protect me, and tell her she was wrong. Instead, he looked at her first. He listened to her story first. Then he turned to me and asked, "Mom, what did you do to make her so mad?" That question broke me. In that moment, I realized I had lost my son. I had lost my home. And I had lost the family I spent my whole life building. And what happened after that was even worse. After that night, I thought my son would finally see the truth. I thought he would protect his mother. I thought he would say, "Mama, you're safe with me." But I was wrong. He sat me down the next day and told me we needed to talk like adults. He said his wife felt threatened by me. He said she felt like I was controlling him. He said I needed to apologize to her for being stabbed. Can you believe that? I was the one bleeding, and I was the one being blamed. He said, "Mom, you're from a different generation. You don't understand modern relationships." He said I should stay quiet, stay out of their business, and stop causing problems. I realized then that my voice didn't matter anymore. I tried to explain how scared I was, how I thought I was going to die. He listened, but his heart wasn't with me. His loyalty was with her. He told me she was stressed. He told me she didn't mean it. He told me to forgive and forget. But how do you forget someone trying to kill you? Things got worse after that. She acted like nothing happened. She walked around the house like she owned it. She laughed, she watched TV, she talked on the phone. And every time she looked at me, I felt chills. My son started avoiding me. He ate meals with her, not with me. He stopped asking for my advice. He stopped sitting with me in the evenings. It was like I had disappeared inside my own house. One day, he told me they needed space. He said maybe I should move to a smaller room. Then he said maybe I should think about living somewhere else. He said it would be better for everyone. Better for everyone, except me. I gave him my youth. I gave him my love. I gave him everything I had. And now, at my weakest moment, he was pushing me out. I started sleeping with my door locked. I kept a chair under the handle. I prayed every night, asking God to keep me alive. I never felt safe again. And then, one evening, I overheard a conversation that changed everything I thought I knew about my son and his wife. What they were planning made my blood run cold. One evening, I was walking past the hallway when I heard my son and his wife talking in the living room. They didn't know I was nearby. They thought I was asleep. I didn't mean to listen, but when I heard my name, I stopped. She was saying I was a burden. She said I was old, stubborn, and in the way. She said the house would be peaceful if I wasn't there. She said people my age shouldn't live with their children anymore. Then my son said something that still haunts me. He said maybe it was time to put me in a nursing home. He said it would be easier. He said I would be taken care of, and they could live their life without worrying about me. I felt my legs go weak. I raised that boy. I stayed up all night when he was sick. I worked 2 jobs to send him to school. I skipped meals so he could eat. And now he was talking about sending me away like an old piece of furniture. She laughed and said, "Or maybe she'll just get tired and leave on her own." That laugh was colder than any winter I've ever known. I went back to my room and sat on my bed, staring at the wall. I thought about my life. I thought about all the sacrifices. I thought about how quickly love can turn into rejection. I realized something important that night. They didn't see me as his mother anymore. They saw me as a problem. The next morning, my son acted normal. He asked if I wanted coffee. He asked how I slept. But I knew the truth. I knew what was in his heart. And his wife, she started acting extra sweet. She brought me food. She asked if I needed anything. But I knew it wasn't kindness. It felt like guilt. Or maybe it felt like strategy. I started packing small things. Old photos, letters, jewelry, memories. I didn't know where I would go, but I knew I couldn't stay forever. Then one day, my son came to me with papers in his hand. He said we needed to plan for the future. He said it was just paperwork. He said it was for my safety. But when I looked at those papers, my hands started shaking. Because it felt like they were already writing me out of their lives. When my son handed me those papers, he said they were just routine. He said they were for my protection. He said it was what responsible families do when parents get older. But when I started reading, I felt like the ground disappeared under my feet. They were talking about power of attorney. They were talking about control over my money, my medical decisions, my life. My son and his wife wanted to make decisions for me without me. He said, "Mom, it's just in case something happens. You don't have to worry about anything anymore." But I did worry. Because I knew what happens when people stop seeing you as a person and start seeing you as paperwork. I asked him why we needed this now. I asked him if he thought I couldn't think for myself. He said he was just trying to help. He said his wife was worried about my future. He said it was all love. But it didn't feel like love. It felt like control. His wife sat beside him, smiling. She said this would make everything easier. She said I wouldn't have to stress about bills or doctors. She said I could just relax and enjoy life. I wanted to believe her. But I remembered the knife. I remembered the conversation I overheard. I remembered how quickly my son chose her over me. So I told them I needed time. That night I sat alone and read every page again. I thought about signing them. I thought about trusting my son. But something inside me kept saying, "Be careful." I thought about how easy it would be for them to decide where I lived, what I did, and what happened to my money. I thought about how easy it would be for them to forget me once everything was in their name. The next day, my son asked if I had signed them. I said no. He looked disappointed. He said I was making things difficult. He said I didn't trust him. He said he was just trying to do what was best. His wife didn't say much. She just looked at me like I was standing in the way of their plans. That's when I realized something. They weren't waiting for me to agree. They were waiting for me to be gone. A few days later, my son told me they found a nice place for seniors. He said it was clean, safe, and full of people my age. He said I would like it there. He said it would be temporary. But I knew what temporary meant. It meant goodbye. When my son drove me to that place, he kept saying it was just for a visit. He said he wanted me to see it so I wouldn't worry. He said I deserved comfort and care. But in my heart, I knew this wasn't just a visit. The building was big and quiet. The hallways smelled like medicine and cleaning chemicals. People sat in wheelchairs, staring at the TV, staring at the walls, staring at nothing. Some looked happy. Some looked lost. Some looked like they were waiting for someone who never came. A lady showed us around. She talked about meals, activities, nurses, and safety. She smiled and said it was like a community. She said families loved this place. I kept thinking, families love it because they don't have to deal with us anymore. My son nodded the whole time. His wife looked impressed. She said it looked peaceful. She said I would make friends here. She said I wouldn't be lonely. But I already felt lonely standing next to them. They showed me a small room, a bed, a dresser, a chair by the window. The lady said I could decorate it with family photos. She said I could make it my own. But it didn't feel like home. It felt like a waiting room for the end of life. My son asked me what I thought. I looked at him and asked, "Do you want me here?" He didn't answer right away. He said it was for my safety. He said they were busy. He said they wanted the best for me. But he didn't say, "I want you with us." That silence told me everything. On the way home, no one talked much. I stared out the window and thought about my house, my kitchen, my chair, my memories. I thought about how easy it is for people to move on. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that room, that quiet hallway, those faces. I realized something painful. They had already made up their minds. This wasn't my decision. This was their plan. The next morning, my son told me they would start the process soon. He said we would take it step by step. He said I shouldn't worry. But I was terrified, because I felt like I was slowly being erased from my own family. And then, something unexpected happened that changed everything for me. Just when I thought I had no one left, something happened that I never expected. A few days after visiting that place, I went to the park near our house. I needed air. I needed to think. I needed to remember who I was before all this pain. I sat on a bench watching people walk by, families, couples, grandparents holding hands with their grandkids. It hurt to watch, but I couldn't look away. Then a woman sat beside me. She looked around my age. She smiled and asked if she could sit. We started talking about the weather, the neighborhood, small things. Then she asked why I looked so sad. At first, I didn't want to share, but something about her felt safe, so I told her everything, about the knife, about my son, about the papers, about the place they wanted to send me. She listened quietly. She didn't interrupt. She didn't judge. When I finished, she held my hand and said, "Honey, you are not a burden, you are a survivor." No one had called me that before. She told me her own story. She said her children tried to control her money. She said they wanted her out of the house too. She said she fought back. She got legal advice. She protected herself, and she started a new life. She looked me in the eyes and said, "You still have a voice. Don't let anyone take it." Those words woke something up inside me. That same week, I called a legal aid office she recommended. I talked to a counselor. I learned what those papers really meant. I learned what my rights were. I learned that I didn't have to sign anything. I learned that I still had control over my life. For the first time in months, I felt a little strong again. When my son asked about the paperwork, I told him I wasn't signing anything. I told him I wasn't moving anywhere. I told him I was still capable of making my own decisions. He looked shocked. His wife looked angry. But I didn't back down. I realized something important. Even when your family turns away, you still matter. Even when your child forgets you, you still have value. Even when you feel old and tired, your life is still yours. But standing up for myself came with consequences I never saw coming. When my son found out I had spoken to a lawyer, he didn't react the way I hoped. He didn't hug me. He didn't say he understood. He didn't say he was sorry. He got angry. He said I was embarrassing him. He said I was listening to strangers instead of my own family. He said his wife felt insulted. He said I was making their lives harder. I listened quietly. Then I told him something I had never said out loud before. I told him I was scared of his wife. I told him I never forgot the knife. I told him I heard their conversation. I told him how it felt to be pushed out of my own home. He went silent. For a moment, I thought he might finally understand. But then he said something that broke my heart all over again. He said, "Mom, you're imagining things. You're getting older. You're too sensitive." That's when I realized something very clear. He wasn't going to change. He wasn't going to protect me. He wasn't going to choose me. So I made the hardest decision of my life. I chose myself. I started looking for my own place, a small apartment, a quiet space where I could feel safe. It wasn't the home I built, but it was a home where no one could hurt me. When I moved out, my son didn't stop me. He didn't beg me to stay. He just helped carry a few boxes and said, "Call us if you need anything." That was it. I cried for days. I cried for the boy I raised. I cried for the family I lost. I cried for the life I thought I would have in my old age. But slowly, something else happened. I felt peaceful. No locked doors. No fear at night. No whispers in the hallway. Just quiet. I started going to the park again. I started talking to new people. I started remembering that I was more than someone's mother or someone's problem. I was a woman who survived. If you're watching this and you feel forgotten by your family, I want you to know something. You still matter. Your life still matters. Your voice still matters. Sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is walk away from the people who should have loved you the most. And sometimes, choosing yourself is the only way to survive.